Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. I'm your host, Tim Reed. And as always, I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast. So this episode is one that we've kind of kicked around for a little while, but I really feel like now is the time to do it. So very often when I go and get to work with businesses, one of the main things that we talk about is how do you know if you're successful or not? There's a lot of businesses that operate off of feel. And you know, because there's money in the checking account, because they're technically making sales, they think stuff is going good. And since there's a lot of people coming into the store, it seems like they believe that everything is healthy and as it should be. But a lot of the times it's actually not the case. And the truth is you really don't know how your business is doing without there being a scoreboard in place. And so what this whole episode is going to be about how do we actually build a scoreboard. So we're going to dive deep into creating a scoreboard both for your installation department and for your sales department. And essentially what we're going to be doing is just talking through like what are the key metrics. Like to start things out, there's a lot of companies that haven't ever tracked anything before, and it can be really difficult and even intimidating to know what you should be doing. But when it comes to sales and installation, these are the two departments that really do need to have a scoreboard in place right away. And there's really like three basic metrics that if you can understand these, you're going to be in a really good spot. And so what I'm going to recommend for this episode is it's probably going to be worth listening to once by yourself, but I would get the rest of your team in place, or at least some key leaders, and listen to it again and start thinking about how can we go about tracking these metrics? We're going to give you some things to think about in regards to like, how do I track the quote percentage of how many people come in the door versus how many walk out with an estimate or a quote? Like, that takes a little bit of work. We're going to talk about with installations, tracking how many jobs are in the books right now compared to where things were last year. And chances are that you're going to need a little bit of help with this. In order to be effective with scoreboards, you're going to have to talk to someone else in your company, maybe that works on the installation side or that does administrative work for you to really help you put this together. But the cool thing is that once a scoreboard is in place, like you don't have to reinvent the wheel again, it's built, and you can actually work on revising it again and again and again in the future. So I'm going to get out of the way and let you listen to this conversation. I cannot wait for you to hear it because this is something that's just it's so practical. It's so tangible. And if you're wondering why your business is out of control and every single day you feel like you're just, banging your head against a wall, chances are it's probably because you're not measuring performance with a scoreboard. So you keep making the same mistakes again and again and again. So we don't want that for you. We want you to be able to solve problems long term and not just in the short term. And that's what this episode is all about. Joining me from Spokane, Washington is Grant Falco. Grant, I've been excited about this episode for a long time, and we've had a lot of people asking about scoreboards. And so I'm stoked just to jump into a conversation with you and really help people just lay out like the basics of how do I build a scoreboard for my team.
Yeah, no, I'm totally excited too. It sounds so simple. It is somewhat challenging to set up a scoreboard, but man, once you get them set up, you absolutely fall in love with them.
Yeah, it's funny for me, like the way that it started, years ago when I got hired at Fireside, I was alone in basically like an empty warehouse. And I had to just put together some semblance of like, how do I track my closes? How do I track my quotes? How do I track people coming in the store? And it's funny how like necessity is the mother of invention, but this does take time to build. And I think the danger for someone listening is to be like, oh, like I could never have scoreboards like Grant, but like you can. It just takes a little bit of time. And as you build it, it starts to just snowball.
Yeah, it just multiplies. That's exactly right.
Okay, well, what I want to do jumping in is I want to talk about how to build an installation scoreboard and how to build a sales scoreboard. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with sales.
Okay, cool. So a sales scoreboard, this is something that, every business needs to have it. Like, you've seen this as we go in and work with businesses and talk with them. One of the things that happens a lot is most businesses don't think they have a sales problem, but most do. And I think that we've seen this actually even in the Fire Time Network as people fill out the survey to join. we ask retailers to rank their departments in order of their best department to their worst department, and sales is almost always at the top. And I can't actually think of a single company that has sales in like the bottom half, but truly, most companies have a huge problem with sales, but they don't know it. And I think that the danger is they think that because they make sales, things are going good. But the question is their team actually being effective with their sales? And if you don't have a scoreboard, I'm just going to go on the record and say it, I'm guessing that your sales team is actually not that effective.
Well, Tim, we've seen it in different places we've visited, and sales, like being a good salesperson is one thing. There's tons of great salespeople out there that know the product, have experienced the product, and can sell the product. But unfortunately, our industry has been kind of doomed by the demand in the season where it's easy to sell product and it's easy to sell a good amount of product. What I would say is, are you capitalizing on every single sale? Are you taking advantage of every customer that comes in the door? And a lot of times, just simply getting customers the information they're looking for, the solution and the cost to it is just not being done. So yeah, I agree. Sales it's kind of a misconception in our industry where we think we're really good at it because the demand is so high, but maybe there's some things we have to look behind the curtain at.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, okay, jumping into this, if we're going to start to create a scoreboard, what this does is this just gives a common language. And that's the most important thing is like, if we're not looking at it, we have no idea how it's doing. And on a sales scoreboard, there's really 3 basic metrics. And I guess I'll back up. On both of these scoreboards that we want to help you guys create today, we're going to give you 3 simple metrics, 3 for a sales scoreboard and 3 for an installation scoreboard. And you can always go more complex than this. Like if you were to look at the scoreboards that Grant's done and some of the ones that I've been a part of in the past, there's more complexity, but these 3 basic metrics are where you start. So on a sales scoreboard, I'm going to read the 3 metrics and then we'll define them. Okay. The first metric that you have to track is your quote percentage. Just, you have to track it. Number 2, you have to track in-home visits. And then number 3, you have to track your sales backlog per salesperson. And let's go ahead and jump into this. I'll take the first one, which is going to be your quote percentage. So what I take a look at is of all the people that are coming into the showroom, there's different types of customers. And I would really, to make it simple, I'd break it into 2. You've got your true retail customer that's coming in looking at buying a fireplace or a stove or an insert or a barbecue. And then you've got your customer that is not a true retail customer in the sense that they're coming in to pick up a will call part that came in. They're coming in to get a piece of gasket rope. They're coming in to buy like a rub or a spice, but they're not coming into the store to buy like a high dollar item. So I separate those 2 when we track our door swings. So like when people come in, we just simply track which type of customer are they. Are they looking at a high dollar item? And I actually go as far as to track, like, are they looking at an insert, a stove, all that stuff? But just for the basics, are they looking at a high dollar item or are they coming in for a low dollar item or a will call pickup? That's where you got to start, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, in our system, it's if a salesperson is asked for, that's a valued customer. That customer is looking at a whole good, a barbecue, a heat pump, a fireplace, an insert, things like that. We sell spices and rubs, and those are still valued customers, but just tracked differently. And it's absolutely vital to do that.
That's a great way to do it. Yeah, if a professional salesperson's involved, like, I mean, maybe your company has like a greeter or a secretary that if things are busy, they can just help ring that client up. Like, that's not who we're talking about. Like, we're talking about the person that needs to talk to a professional salesperson. Yeah, they're a true retail customer. I love that. Okay, so we got to set up a standard, right? So we've got these people that are walking in out of, let's just say you have 10 people walk in that day or that week that are looking at these high dollar items. Grant, like, what do you think the number needs to be of how many of them need to walk out with an estimate, with a quote, or with an in-home visit?
I would say 90%.
90%.
I mean, I think realistically, 80% of the customers is maybe how you would track it to be realistic. I think that we believe we quote or give ballpark pricing to all probably more than 80% of the customers. And Tim, we've seen it so many times. We just rarely, if ever, see it. And we know what customers are coming in for. They're coming in asking for a sales specialist to solve the problem that they have and have a price associated to it. And if we're not giving them that price, there's so much unknown and so much fear built into that customer, we'll never get them back. So quote percentage, I would say 80% plus. You want you want your salespeople quoting that often.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, so I love that you said 90% because like truly it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about like people don't walk into fireplace stores by accident. Like they're walking in for a reason. And so if 10 people walk into the store looking for a gas insert, wouldn't you think that 9 of them should at least be able to get a price of what that costs? So I'm with you. The number that I go with is 80% as a baseline, but 90% is what you attain to. It's funny. We actually didn't even talk about this before, but our numbers are identical. That 80% is the baseline. Like 8 out of 10 people that come in looking at a wood stove, they need to walk out with an estimate in hand or an in-home visit booked.
Totally.
And tracking this on the scoreboard is important because I mean, I'll just go on the record and say it, that if you're a company right now that doesn't track this metric, I will bet you a large amount of money that you're at less than 20%.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Straight up. Like, I mean, I would bet you a large amount of money that is less than 20%. And like, we know this, Grant. Like, I mean, when we go into different markets, like we secret shop the market, and we recently went into an unnamed market and we visited like 7 stores, 8 stores. And like, how many estimates did we get written up for us?
Zero.
And like,
and not even expectations of pricing. Not even expectations of pricing. Like nothing. Yeah. It was unbelievable.
And I came in like every time I secret shop, I describe my real house. And in every single time I always talk about like, well, we're going to do it. We're going to pull the trigger. Like I drop so many hints, like we are ready to do this. Not a single estimate. And the reason why, like, I get it. Estimates are hard to write up. There's complexity. You're busy, but there's no excuse. Like, I mean, we have seen this firsthand, and this is the quickest way to grow your revenue is if you start tracking your quote percentage and you can get that number from 20% to 80%, like lights out, game changer.
Yeah. Game changer. And I'll say, there's that 20% that are always going to be there. But when you track it, when you are a team that's committed to an 80% or greater goal, and let's say you're not getting there, you work towards solutions and things that are going to get you there. And we know that there's 10 to 20% of the people that give you the constant excuse, I got to talk to my wife, I got to do this, I got to do that. Well, what we at Falcos have done is we have a quick ballpark sheet that gives them an average installation cost that they can go through. And then it gives them the 4-step plan on how to get your installation complete, because we never got an opportunity most likely to take them through that. And then it shares some financings and that type of stuff to make it easy. So how do you capture on those people is only focused on because we're tracking that quote percentage.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So you're going to listen to this, and I know that this opens up a can of worms. It means, well, I gotta track how many people are coming into my store. Yes, you do. Like you do. Like there's no way around it. You have to. And you could say, well, wait a minute, but okay, let's say I don't have a greeter that can do this. I mean, if you have a greeter, like amazing, they can just do it for you. But if it's by salespeople, so wait a minute, Tim, you're saying that my own salespeople need to track it. How do I know that they're not going to just say that they wrote up more estimates? Well, I mean, if you can't trust your salespeople, they probably shouldn't be working for you. But also, if you pay your salespeople on a sliding scale, and you can just say like, guys, like, you want to make more money? Like, let's start tracking this because I guarantee that you're going to make more money. And what I'll say is that there might be a factor of error to it if there's a human that's doing it, but that's okay. Like, I'll take a 10% error factor to know whether I'm even in the ballpark of quoting most of my customers versus having no idea.
Yeah, and it's truly not about the number being accurate. It's always about the number being consistent, like consistently tracked. So if the human error is there, it's going to be there all the time. It's all about getting better. And the only way you know how to get better is if you know where you're at. But you have to start tracking things. And as silly as it sounds, it will start to make sense, and it will be totally worth tracking the people that come into the floor and your quote percentage long term.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the first metric on your sales scoreboard. And by the way, like, these are public scoreboards. So like, as we talk about this, these need to be reviewed and in front of everybody. The next metric on the scoreboard, I'm going to kick to you, Grant, and this is going to be in-home visits. Can you talk about this metric?
Yeah. So, I mean, like every dealer, I believe if you have a chance to be in the customer's home, I mean, you should be getting those jobs well above 80%, 90%. You should be getting those jobs. Someone lets you into your home, a stranger, to do an estimate. They are very serious about what they do.
Oh, especially after seeing a $5,000 or $7,000 price tag, and they still say, "Come to my house." Like, get out of here, man.
If they are
That's a
quoted, it's like 99% of the time. So what we do is we just track how many in-home estimates we do per week. So as we've grown, you have these situations where they create a huge amount of backlog, and we went from 2 installation crews in the last 2 or 3 years to 4 installation crews. But we have not changed our one in-home estimator. His schedule has just went out further. Well, in order to grow that, in order to put 4 teams together every week, you have to sell 20 at least installs per week. Well, how do you do that? You make sure you do 30 estimates. So we track the estimates, the in-home visits done, because we know that we'll get 80 to 90% of those. So we expect 30. How we actually do it and report it on our scoreboard is we do some key performance indicators that we share on a weekly basis. And if he does more than 35, or we do more than 35, it's in the green. Between 25 and 35 is in the yellow. That's good. And below 25 is in the red. But we track it every week. And what this has actually done is Dwayne is not physically able to get 35 bids done in the week, but that's not important. It is important, but how you get to 35 is what you got to figure out. Once you make it a goal, then you figure out how to do it. So we have a lead installer who's been installing for years. Great guy. He's picking up 5 to 7 estimates per week. And then yours truly ends up doing 5 to 7 estimates per week as well. People that are out of town, we try to do picture bids and things like that, ask a lot of questions. I'm responsible for those as well. But our goal every week is to get 35 plus. That assures us to keep our 4 installation crews going all season long. Yeah,
that's terrific. And this is just a simple metric. I mean, you're just simply looking at, for this given week, how many estimates are in the books.
Exactly.
And I love that you're saying that. So let's just say that you have 1 installation crew. If you have 1 installation crew, you want to shoot for 2 jobs a day. So that means that you need to have 10 jobs in the books. And that means that you probably need to have like 12 to 13 in-home visits scheduled to be able to keep your crews full. I love how you reverse engineer that. So like, if you have 2 installation crews, well, I mean, okay, look at what their max capacity would be. Maybe it's 6. I mean, if you have 1 installation crew, they probably need to be working 6 days a week in season.
Yep.
So you got to, yeah, I mean, you got to use that to build out. But truthfully, if you're running multiple crews, you need to be doing a lot of in-home visits. And this is just a great way to track it. I want to go back to what you said about green, yellow, red. Can you just outline that real quick on these metrics?
Yeah. So our scoreboarding is called the Kpi Report. And
KPI stands for?
Key Performance Indicators. Thank you. So how our business is set up is we have weekly team meetings. Every team has a meeting agenda. The meeting agenda is broken down into performance, investment, and hot topics, urgent stuff to talk about. The performance part is where the scoreboard goes up on the TV in our conference room, just so happens to be my office, and we review the performance. We basically predetermine what is green, yellow, and red, and set goals up based on what those key performance indicators are. The green indicates winning. That means we're on track. We're hitting our goals. We're doing amazing. Let's freaking celebrate it. And we do. Yellow is, okay, that's good. What did we do good? What did we do bad? Okay, let's move on to the next thing. Red is where we focus. It's where we lose. But we have a saying, it's winning or learning. So employees, when they come to work, they want to do one thing. They want to win. They want to win. And if you don't have a public scoreboard where they can win, then they don't know when they're winning. And you want to share with them on a weekly basis. If they're winning, they need to know it. And there's people in your business right now winning and they don't know it. But more importantly, as managers, you want to hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's terrific. I love that. So green means it's amazing. Like, we're crushing it. Keep going. Yellow is like, hey, things are okay. This will take us to our goals. But like, we're not doing jumping jacks. Red is, there's something going on. We got to ask some questions about what we're going to do to pivot and fine tune. So with these goals, like, put them into green, yellow, red terms. Keep it easy for your team. And then as they're looking at the scoreboard, they can instantly see like, hey, we're crushing it here. Things are amazing, or, things aren't good. And we got to come to this meeting with an answer as to why. Okay. So we've talked about the quote percentage. We've talked about measuring the number of in-home visits. And again, that metric needs to be, what's my max installation capacity for a week? And then just add 20% to it. And that's how many in-home visits you need to be doing per week to keep those installers busy. The last one is going to be your sales backlog. And I'll take this and then we'll jump into the installation scoreboard. So say that you've got 2 salespeople, because maybe you're a smaller company and maybe one of them's part-time. That's totally fine. Maybe you're a bigger company that's got like 5 salespeople, or you even have a couple different showrooms. This metric needs to be tracked per salesperson. And every single salesperson must have a sales goal, even if they're part-time. There needs to be a sales goal. And just to give you some loose math to start with, like this is loose. It's going to change depending on your market and your company and everything. But if you break down sales on a yearly level, an A-level full-time salesperson is going to be doing over $1 million a year. A B-level full-time salesperson is probably going to be in that $700,000 to $1 million range. C-level is going to be in that like, $450,000, $500,000 to $700,000, and then below that is going to be D level or a new salesperson that's learning. Like Grant, is that like relatively fair?
That's exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this will
totally
change
right
market to market, but like there's a baseline of your yearly sales.
I mean, you're in Portland. I'm in Spokane. I'm in a smaller market, and I have the same type of numbers for sure.
Yeah, and we see that like generally as we travel too. So if that's your yearly goal, it's pretty easy to start to break that into monthly sections, right? So like if you think this is an A-level salesperson that you have, well, they're probably going to do like 2/3 of their revenue in 1/3 of the season. Like it gets crazy this time of year. So you can start to break out like what would the sales goals be. You can also look at historic data to see how much have we done, but that is going to help you put together what the monthly sales goals need to be. And if you have someone that's part-time or like a secretary that helps out when you're busy in season, like their goal can be really low, but there still is a goal. Okay. So we've established this, like you've broken out, okay, what are my sales goals per person per month? So let's say that my team member in November is going to try and have a sales goal of $80,000. That's amazing. But the truth is that we have what's called a sales cycle, right? Like if I sell something in November, it's not going to get installed until probably like late November or December. To keep it simple, just assume we have a 4-week sales cycle. By the time it gets ordered, installed, like let's just say you have a 4-week sales cycle. This is the way that I like to do it. If I want to have $80,000 sold in November, like sold out, invoiced, money in the bank, that means that I need to have sold it the month before. And that's where the backlog comes in. It means that in October, I will have needed to have taken deposits on $80,000 worth of stuff in order for it to get installed the next month. The limbo space where I've taken a deposit on it, but it has not yet been installed and invoiced is called your backlog. That's your sales backlog. So here's the way that you need to check your backlog for your teams. Like if I say, Grant, you're my salesperson and your goal is $80,000. Well, you're not going to, by the time you find out if you actually did $80,000 in November, well, that's the work that you did 4 weeks ago. It's like you can't do anything. It's a lag measure, which, I mean, it's a good measure, but it lags behind. The measure that we need to track is how much have you actively added to your backlog, okay? So all you got to do is just move everything up a month. Grant, if your sales goal for November of invoiced installed jobs is 80,000, well, that means that in October, your goal is to have a backlog of 80,000. So it's that easy. It's a 1-to-1 correlation. Like you want to grow your active backlog of jobs that you have taken a deposit on, but have not been installed yet to 80,000. Because once you've done that, like the sales goal is going to take care of itself. With all that said, a lot of companies will run like an open order report. That's perfect, right? These are the orders that are still open. You've taken deposits on them, but they've not been installed. That's your backlog. There's different ways to do this. A simple way, a lot of you guys that have taken my sales courses have seen that I've got like a really simple CRM spreadsheet where you can track this on. If you've got a CRM system or a point of sale system where you can track open orders, it's the same thing, but you have to track the backlog because that will tell you how much is going to go that next month.
Absolutely. It's a really good indicator. And as a company, you should have an understanding of where your backlog is. And if you can compare it year to year, it really tells you it's a predictor in a way for what the next 6 to 8 weeks really truly hold for your business.
Yeah. And this is by salesperson. So again, let's say you've got 3 salespeople. You've got Paul, Peter, and Mary, right? Okay. Those are your 3 salespeople. Every single week, you need to have an indicator showing this is your goal. And that goal's gonna be different. Like maybe Peter's part-time. So his goal for the whole month is only like 15,000 in sales. Great. Maybe Mary is just a rock star and her goal is 120,000 in sales. Like that is shown right here with another indicator of where their backlog is. So if for the month, Mary's goal is 120,000, but it's 2 weeks into the month and her backlog of deposits she's taken is only 40,000, like that needs to be shown. And salespeople can see like who is the one that's actually maximizing their potential. Like if this is your goal, you need to track your progress of your backlog. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I think you explained that extraordinarily well, Tim, because I think the hard part is how do you incentivize sales when it's invoice numbers that are important, but yet that salesperson doesn't have all the control on when that gets installed. So I think the backlog is the best way to control that.
100%. Yep. The backlog is what the salesperson controls. And if they can get their backlog to where they need it for their sales goal, man, their numbers, their commission, their spiffs, like that'll all take care of itself. Okay. So that's the sales scoreboard. I mean, I know that we've talked about this for like 25 minutes, but it's just 3 simple metrics. What's my quote percentage? How many in-home visits am I doing per week? And what's my backlog per salesperson? That's it.
Yep.
I want to shift the focus to installation and let you really kick this off, Grant. I'm going to go through the 3 metrics and then we'll break them down. So on your installation scoreboard, the 3 metrics are number 1, my urgent incomplete percentage. We'll go over that in just a minute. Then we need to track our total revenue. After that, we look at the number of jobs in the schedule. And that's going to be a really good installation scoreboard to start out with. We'll get back to our conversation with Grant Falco in just 1 second. Hey, if you're listening to this episode and thinking, man, I have got to get a scoreboard system to organize my business the right way, and you need help with that, you might think about taking advantage of a blitz trip. So a blitz trip is when Grant and I actually come to your business, and we generally will take 2.5 days and come in, where we're really going to outline and overview your company at a high level and identify where we see friction points that need to be resolved, and we can brainstorm some solutions to that. The next day, we come in and we work with you on all the different departments of your company, and we specifically focus on the things that we're talking about in this episode, helping you build scoreboards, figure out what do you expect for performance and how do we measure it? Because most companies actually have good team members, they're just not being utilized and leveraged in the right way. So we want to get into all the different departments of your business and help you identify what you can do to grease the wheel and get things working more efficiently. Lastly, we'll meet with you on the final day to just go through our insights as to what have we seen, the good, the bad, and the ugly that you may be blind to as an owner or a leader in the company. After that, we're going to boil everything down into a big 3. We're out of everything that we've talked about, out of everything that we've seen. These are the 3 next steps to take your business forward in the next 6 months. We follow up with a write-up, a written summary, and all these different things about the strengths and weaknesses of your business as well. But at the heart of this, you're going to be able to understand where you need to go. When you're stuck in the foxhole, it's so hard to get outside perspective. And being able to get that with a plan that has worked for other retailers is something that can really transform your company. So if you want to take advantage of that, you can go to itsfiretime.com/blitz. That's itsfiretime.com/blitz. So to kick this off, Grant, we've talked a lot in the podcast before about what an urgent incomplete is. I mean, I got this language from you, that this is going to be when we go out to do a job that we were planning on completing and something happened to make it incomplete, and we have to get it taken care of. And Grant, you've talked about, like, with urgent incompletes, this can't happen very often. Like, your number is aggressive. Like, can you talk about the urgent incomplete metric and where things need to be?
Yeah. So when I think about our scoreboards or the key performance indicators we come up, it really kind of comes down to 2 things to me. And I don't share this with my team necessarily, but it's quality control and it's growth. So how do I grow is one factor, and really all key performance indicators are whether growing in efficiency, growing in revenue, getting better, or quality control. How do I make my customers happier? How do I get less upset customer phone calls? And what I find as you transition into a managerial position for our company is you're the one that are dealing with the customers that are upset. And I'll tell you, Tim, it was pretty consistently the people just dropped through the cracks. System didn't catch it. And then, to be honest, some of my employees maybe were scared to do anything about it. What we have now is we have an expectation. If we plan on finishing the job and the customer is told we plan to finish that job and it's not completed, we mark it as an urgent incomplete. We track a 90% completion rate, but it didn't start that way. It didn't. But your urgent incompletes are your problems. And the only way you solve them is by exposing them. And then you also get an opportunity to teach your team in going through them. And we have urgent incompletes will not be, the same urgent incomplete is not allowed to be on the next agenda or scoreboard. So we have 7 days to solve that problem. So if we have to rob a part to take care of it because it was a fan that was off, that rattled when we fired it off, we have to do that. If we made a mistake, we're going to push jobs or rearrange jobs or work overtime to make sure that it's complete. We didn't do that before. We wanted to say we did. We believed that we did, but you guys, it just wasn't happening. Once we track the urgent incompletes, game changer. I can honestly tell you, I do not think I have talked to one upset customer this year. And what I mean by that is like since July, and before that was COVID, there's all sorts, honestly, maybe that is this whole year. I have a team of leaders who,
but like you can't remember the last upset customer dude, like for people listening to this, like that's a mark to strive for.
And it's something that wasn't like that. That used to be my job. I mean, I have no hair and there's reasons for it. It was difficult. And you want to do right by them. You want to explain that you understand what your team is going through. But if they're not put in a position, it's chaotic during the season. Things get dropped. And our job as owners, managers, is to make sure that things don't get dropped. As soon as we started the urgent incomplete, it created all sorts of solutions. When we had made mistakes out there, we figure them out. I guarantee you, Falco's is one of the first people to call manufacturers when there's a manufacturer problem. That has been consistent. You know why? Because every week we meet about these urgent incompletes. And if there's any repetition, we know right away. Manufacturers will tell us time and time again, no, that's not a problem. No, that's not a problem. Okay, we've seen it 4 times in 5 weeks. I'm telling you, you haven't heard it yet. You don't know it yet. Most dealers are just still spinning their wheels on it. We're not. So I believe there's just a huge learning curve. Urgent incompletes are a game changer in our business, to say the least.
Yeah, this is the number one installation metric you have to track. And kind of like sales, if you think like, oh yeah, like we quote probably, I don't know, 50, 60% of our customers. If you don't track it, I guarantee it's less than 20%. This is the same way. I mean, so you're saying with urgent incompletes, the acceptable number, bare minimum, is that only 10% of the time. Like if you are having urgent incompletes with more than 10% of your jobs, like there's a problem. But if you've never tracked it, I guarantee it's more than 10%.
Oh, I guarantee it. And the thing is it doesn't matter about the percentage, it's your attention. Urgent incompletes are the negative review. Urgent incompletes are the ones, if you ignore, they're already upset. If you ignore it after the upset because it was incomplete, we're going to get torn apart. You lose points every day that goes by that you haven't addressed it. And bringing it into focus is the important, wherever your barometer is at. I mean, if your urgent completes are at 50%, that's okay. If you're tracking it, they're going to get better. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like time is money. In season, we only have so much time. And if we're tracking urgent incompletes, like this is how we start to save time and give a better experience to our customers. Like all of this is so that our customers will have a better experience.
That's exactly right.
So with green, yellow, red, Grant, I think it's fair to say if you're going to go out, like let's say you're running one installation crew. So that means that you can do at the absolute most 12 jobs per week, right? That's working 6 days a week, 2 jobs a day. I mean, let's say 10 for simple math. This means that you are only afforded one urgent incomplete. In an entire week, your expectation should be that only one job has a return trip. Like that's aggressive.
Yeah, it should be none. I mean, truthfully, is it acceptable that we go out and it's incomplete if we're professional at what we do? If it's just that black trim color that we forgot? No, that's not acceptable. So I agree, 90% is the barometer that should be there. But truthfully, we should expect to get every job right.
Yeah, so if we're looking at green, yellow, red, again, if we have 10 jobs for the week, anything above 10% is red. Like that's horrible. 5% to 10% is going to be yellow. It's acceptable. That'll take us to our goal. It's acceptable. And green is going to be less than 5%, right? So like let's say you have 2 installation crews. You can do 20 jobs a week. That means that you need to have like to be in the green less than 5% of the time you're going back out for a second trip.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So that's an important metric. And the way that you do this is your installers. Like I wish that like there needs to be like a button on the dashboard that like they get back into the car afterwards. And if everything went as planned, they never have to go back again. They hit that green button, right? The job is totally done. The next one is going to be
hold on, Tim. I want to take you back to that urgent and complete in that statement right there. So how we do that is by another metric that we track that we won't talk about here is our picture report, another quality control report. So we expect before and after pictures of all our jobs, and we have expectations per product type of what you're supposed to take pictures of, and we grade that. That's not why I'm bringing this up. Your stamp in green light, like it's done or not done, each installation crew is expected to send that email, and in that email they mark incomplete, planned, or unplanned. So we know immediately if it's unplanned, and the salespeople are expected to react and address that with the customer. They might not know anything about it, even though they got pictures. They talk to the installer, they call the customer that day, and they let them know we're dealing with it.
Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah, because there's planned incompletes, right? Like if you're selling a zero clearance fireplace that has a decorative front and it's a new construction job, like that's a planned incomplete. Like you got to wait until sheetrock and finish. It's gonna be 3 months. That's different than an urgent incomplete that was not planned. Exactly. So we're not talking about planned incompletes. We're talking about urgent incompletes.
Yep.
Okay. So after urgent incompletes, the next metric that has to go on this installation scoreboard is revenue. And again, we've said these are public-facing scoreboards. And you're listening to this thinking like, Grant, you're telling me that I got to show my revenue to my team? What's your answer?
Yes. I mean, it's hard. Like, because when it's good, man, it's good. We know that. But you have to share it with them when it's bad. I mean, when I came into this business, I adopted a different practice than my parents. And it was controversial in a way. My parents have supported me and helped with everything in this business and guided me into so many successful decisions. But I really stuck to my guns on keeping employees in the off season. And if you're going to do that, you got to show the people how bad it is to make it better. So in the off season, it's hard to sell stuff, but if you're tracking it, guess what? You figure out how to sell stuff. You figure out how to keep these installers going. So I believe sharing revenue, being as transparent as is possible is definitely in your best interest. Now, it doesn't come without some understanding of, oh my gosh, it was a $50,000 week. You're just rolling in the money. That's where you come in as a leader. You have to give them perspective. You have to understand that's not the case. And you also, when you're bringing in $2,000 and you're paying out $10,000 to your crew, they also need that perspective. That's why Falco's went from off season, in season to invest season, payoff season. I mean, very specific. We're not allowed to call it off season because we ain't off. We're not laying anybody off. Yeah. We're investing back into our business. So tracking revenue is one of those push metrics. I mean, I have, just for an example, 4 crews last year and 4 crews this year. How do you grow on installation?
Yeah.
Like how?
Yeah.
It's the same amount of crews. You have to push. You have to track it. You have to know how much you did last week, last year, same week. And you have to beat that this year, that week. You have to make sure you do it. And the only way you do that is by sharing revenue. So we have a barometer on our scoreboard that says what a successful revenue installation week is, what an okay one is, and what a bad one is. And, you know, installers are going to say they can't control that. That is not true. They can control it by being willing participants in double days, extra jobs, when they're done early, unexpectedly, calling you and asking for more. I mean, they have a big part in that, as well as your coordination.
Yeah, and revenue, I mean, it's job security, right? So you might be nervous about showing like, well, man, in season, they're going to see that we did this much in revenue. Well, yeah, they are, but this is their job security. Like the reason that we do this, the reason that we have these goals for revenue is so that we don't lay anybody off, and it's so that like hopefully we can give a bonus at the end of the year.
That's
like
exactly right.
There's nothing to run from. I mean, like I am a fan of transparency when appropriate. This is an appropriate time to say like, this is where we need the revenue to be. and we're either making it or we're not. And this is like how we make decisions for what we do in the off season. So let's get that revenue. Grant, jump into some metrics. Like, what does a revenue goal need to be per week? Like you want to track this per week, right?
Yeah. So like per week, should we go with just one installation crew?
Yeah, let's just go.
So
with
like
one
just
crew.
as a barometer. So I would expect $5,000 per day. One installation crew should be able to bring in $25,000 per week. That's what I would expect. So how I would set up that KPI on our scoreboard is I would probably have a $35,000 green, and then I'd have a $25,000 to $35,000 yellow, and then less than $25,000 I would have in red. And it's because I want to push. I mean, I'm a pusher, and I'm notorious for when people think it's not time to push even harder. And so what has happened with that is we've figured out ways to prioritize our jobs. So, there's one factor of the coordination and the installers having an impact by pushing and not taking lazy days and not leaving at 2:00 one day, actually getting up 2 finals done so they can get a half a job that next Friday. I mean, one thing I want to note, Tim, is if you move a day from one week to the other, you never get that day back. And that's something that we just don't do. We are constantly coordinating, making sure revenue is unbelievable on a weekly basis. Now, what we do is we grade all jobs, which is absolutely vital. And we schedule jobs based on grades. And there's 2 different grading scales. And you've talked about your version, and we might kind of have similar versions. Well, ours is like, if it's an easy job, it's an R5. If it's a hard job, it's an R9 or a 10. But we've added A, B, C, or D to the second part of that. And that's attractiveness. And there is qualifiers. I can't remember all of them, but is it a high-paying job? Is the customer awesome, or is the customer a grouch? Is it a low margin job? Like, what type of job is it? Is it a 3-day job that doesn't, give you the revenue that 3 individual job does? We try to grade all that so that our coordination can maximize every week. So much so, and like you said, the snowball, it multiplies. Now we actually are projecting installation weeks and figuring out, okay, we need to get this huge new construction job on this week to make sure that we're beating our numbers. And as silly as it sounds, you guys, it changes the way your business operates. And tracking revenue, invoice revenue, is the indicator of your business. Right now, I know I'm up 20% on installed numbers from August 4th to today. I know my business is up that amount. I know it. I don't know it overall. I don't see every part of my business. I'm in the crazy season. But I know based on that metric that I am somewhere in the line there. It's a very powerful metric. And we're all in business to make money. Revenue is their indicator of how successful you are. And it's not how successful you are for the, what you like. The backlog is great, but how do you maximize that backlog is what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, so boiling this down just to be super practical in this metric. So like you laid out for one crew to be in the green, $25,000 a week, right? And you go from there accordingly. So on your scoreboard, you need to have a green, yellow, red that you're showing your crews. You're looking at last week. Okay. So last week, this was our revenue in the green. Oh my gosh, guys, that's amazing. Hey, we want to just say thank you by giving you like a gift card for take your families out to dinner this weekend, right? Or it's, hey, we're in the yellow. Okay. Hey, good job. Good job. Like that's good. Not great, but that's good. Let's keep going. Let's keep pushing. Or this is in the red. Hey, last week things fell off. Like, why was our revenue down so much? What happened? Like, this is how you start to ask those questions.
And what's so amazing about the red, Tim, is that there's reasons a lot of times.
Sure.
You don't have to assume, okay, there was guys off, or there was final after final after final. We had to get all these finals done so that we can get on to the next job. So it's not always bad. There's reasons, but you're always motivated to do better.
Yeah. I want to go to the third metric. So the third metric on the installation scoreboard, again, this is public. Everybody sees it every week. It's the number of jobs on the schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really simple. And you just track it year over year. So like at this point last year, we had this many jobs on the schedule. Like, period. Like, I mean, I don't care if it goes out till like, if it's October and you're going all the way out through March. We had 100 jobs on the schedule at this time last year. Great. How many do we have this year on the schedule? Why is that number important?
Well, just an indicator. I mean, we talk about lead measures and lag measures every once in a while, and that's just a lead measure that's telling you so much of what's about to come down and allows your team to maximize. I mean, I think of multiple things when you say that. When you have, if you have 100 and you go to 150, there's things you have to do to maximize that. We only have 6 months of the payoff. Man, that's an indicator. Right now, we had our biggest September in the history of Falco's in 17 years that I've been here. And that's amazing. And I'm so grateful. But I'm not just okay with that. I'm maximizing that every possible way I can. And number of jobs on the schedule is what has told me that 2 months ahead of all these jobs coming to fruition. Now I'm maximizing, trying to figure out every way I can install these. I'm not saying I'm doing subcontractors, but I've looked at to subcontract out to the job. I'm looking at every possible way simply because I know it's out that far. And if it's not going out far in comparison to the years past, you have time to adjust or to figure out what's going wrong.
Yeah, that's so good. I think that every single year in this industry, we always say like, oh, it's crazy. Like, yeah, we've never had a season like this. Is that the case? Like, I mean, every year we're busy. Like, check and see, okay, well, this time last year, I had 40 jobs in the books. Now this year I've got 60. Man, no wonder it feels crazy. Like, good. Tell your team that, guys. Like, hey, yeah, it does feel crazy. Like this time last year, we only had this many jobs in the books. This year, we've got this. Or maybe you got to say, guys, like, I know it seems busy, but right now we've only got 30 jobs in the books. Where last year we actually had 50. So it feels busy, but we're not. So like we gotta figure out what to do to get something happening here.
And it allows you to ask why are there 30? And you get responses. Maybe it's weather, maybe it's this, and they're not necessarily excuses, but asking why is extraordinarily powerful in that situation.
Yeah, it is. So it's a simple metric. We're just saying how many jobs are in the books right now compared to how many jobs were in the books last year. And if you just track this as a rolling measurement every single week, it's the heartbeat. Like this just tells you the health of your installation team. So circling back, big picture here, on your installation scoreboard, you have 3 metrics to start with. You have your urgent incomplete percentage. You've got your total revenue, and then you've got the number of jobs on the schedule. If you can start there, you'll be just amazed at what this looks like a year from now. Bit by bit by bit, this is how you build a business that starts to run without you doing everything. If you don't have scoreboards, you don't have anything.
Yeah, Tim, I mean, I feel like we are jumping on grenades constantly. And what we find as we jump on them over and over again, that they're the same mistakes. And truly what the scoreboard allows you to do and the consistent meetings is solve problems permanently. And that's what I do. I think that's what leaders need to do, is they need to solve problems permanently. We talked about how many upset customers I've got phone calls on this year. That is exactly why, because we've been solving these problems. Why do we have an installation fully stocked truck with every possible tool for any installation and every backup piece in there and inventoried on a weekly basis? Because we solve problems permanently. We get back out to customers right away, especially the ones we know are going to be the most upset, urgent and completes. We solve problems permanently, Tim.
Yeah, that's terrific. I heard you say that a while back and it blew my mind. And dude, like, I'm just telling you as your friend, like, that's your superpower. You come in and you help solve problems permanently. And this is the mark to aspire to. Like, guys, in business, problems never go away. Like we're not sitting here saying like our lives are easy. We're always solving problems. But man, like, if we're going to solve a problem, like, let's solve it permanently, because I got bigger ones I got to move on to afterwards. Like, I don't want to keep stubbing my toe on the same freaking thing. Like, I love that you said that. So rounding this out, guys, you've heard it here. Like, this is how you make a scoreboard. Start with sales, start with installation, a few basic metrics, and then you can be a leader that solves something permanently so you can move on to what's next. Grant, this has been a pleasure, man. Thanks for being here.
Tim, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Grant Falco all about building a scoreboard. I think it's such a good reminder. And there's a lot of amazing things that our industry brings to the table. I think that there's just a spirit of hard work and entrepreneurship in our industry that is really unique. And anyone that has spent time here knows how good the people are. I think where we suffer is more formal systems and processes. And there's a balance. Like, you never want to be too structured and too corporate. But the truth is that's just not where most of the companies in our industry are. Most of the companies in our industry could use a lot more infrastructure. There's an analogy I've heard in spiritual formation that talks about the difference between the trellis and the vine. The vine is the living thing, and you never want to stifle that out with too much trellis. But the trellis is necessary to hold up the vine so that it can grow and become what it's meant to be. Otherwise, the vine just dies. It can't grow up. Scoreboards and systems like this are going to do that. And just for you as a leader, if you're someone that every single day is caught in the whirlwind, you're jumping on grenades, you're putting out fires, and you feel like you're getting beat up, this is going to be a step that you can take towards getting above your business to where you can start to steer it rather than get dragged down the road by it. So I hope that this was really helpful for you and just super practical that you can take away and start putting into action right now. Well, hey, as we round things out, if this podcast has been a blessing for you and you'd like to support it financially, you can do that by going to patreon.com/itsfiretime. That's patreon.com/itsfiretime. We're so thankful for the monthly supporters that we have that are helping to keep this going. We're using all the funds to help outsource the administrative content, so that way we can keep the level of production as high as possible, and also just be going out to get guests and taking the time that we need to make sure that this podcast brings value to your business. So going out today, I know that there's a lot here, and you might have to listen to this episode again. Like I said, get together with some key team members in your company and schedule a meeting where you go through this and you actually make it happen. Because you got to remember that just listening to this for 45 minutes, yeah, it's going to fill your head with great ideas, but it's only in the execution that you win. So with that, I hope you guys have an unbelievable week. Go out and execute. Thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast. To learn more, visit the website itsfiretime.com. Music from this episode was written and recorded by In Bloom out of Portland, Oregon. We thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. We'll see you next time.